Well, Shabbat Shalom to all of you out there who are watching here today and also in the future. And we are so blessed that all of you are watching and listening and have been keeping up with us here at the Covenant Calendar, where we bring you the prophetic and the calendar, as Yahuwah had ordained it from the day of creation. We today are going to be going over, or Brandon will be teaching on the Great Reset. It's a wonderful teaching that I was honored to listen to already, but I hope all of you that are listening to it will be edified and blessed by it. It's basically the Great Reset. Many of you may have already heard what this means or what this could mean, but he's also going to go into in depth of how this is actually paving the way for the number of the beast. And so he will be discussing some of the COVID or pre-plandemic situation and conditions that we have been experiencing, up until this current summer of this year, and how it's tied to the book of Revelation and other scriptures throughout the scriptures. Well, it is a wonderful teaching. I've heard it, and so please get your notepad out and just and see what condition this world is in right now and where it's headed and why we need a savior. So what a blessing that Yahuwah is going to come back in Yahushua for his saints. What a blessing. And so and establish his kingdom here on earth. And if y'all are not joining us live, please do so. Sign up at torahtothetribes.com/connect and sign up for all the different platforms that they'll keep you busy all throughout the week. Lots of food there for your nourishment and growth, spiritual growth, and strength and support by your brothers and sisters here at Torah to the Tribes. I hope y'all are blessed today and have a great day. So whenever you are ready, my brother, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Brother Jose. And thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. Shabbat Shalom to you. And Shalom to those who are watching this in the future. Let me go ahead and share my screen. I guess I can just share the whole screen. There we go. All right. So as you can see, this is called, I called this the Great Reset. For those of you who don't know, aren't familiar with this logo in the background, this is the UN's logo. Okay. I won't even go into the details of all this has on it, but there's a lot of messages that are being portrayed. But anyway, the reason why I'm using it is because the Great Reset, they're going to use the Great Reset to unify the whole world under the beast system, the UN system, the giving all the power onto one entity, that entity being the beast. So, this is talked about in Daniel 7. It's talked about in Revelation 13. It's talked about in Revelation 17. We're going to get into more of that next week or next time, y'all willing. But I wanted to touch on this week, give you a little bit of background on why we call it this, but also talk to you about what we've seen, like Brother Jose was talking about. What was the culture like? What was, at least, this is, I do apologize for those who are in other countries. Obviously, I don't have all the information for all the other countries. So this is going to be primarily what we are seeing in America. However, I will say this, that, if America's affected, America's economy is affected, the whole world economy is affected. Okay. We'll get into more of that as we go. All right. So, like I said, it's called the Great Reset, paving the way for the one world currency, which is also known as the number of the beast. Okay. We know that that there's not just the mark of the beast. There's also the name of the beast. There's the number of the beast. There's the image of the beast, right? So, and we'll get into more next week or next time, Yah willing, like I said, on why I'm saying that it's paving the way for the one world currency and why I'm calling that the number of the beast. But this week is going to be more of an introduction as to what is the Great Reset, what are our current conditions, things like that, and the changes that we've seen. And maybe you felt them and maybe you haven't, okay? But if you haven't, we all soon will, all right? So what is the Great Reset? Well, great question. I'm glad you asked, because we definitely want to make sure that we all understand what the Great Reset is. So the Great Reset was the name of the 50th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum that was held in June of 2020. So this already occurred. So last summer, right around this time in 2020, they held the World Economic Forum. All the major central bankers, IMF, all that kind of stuff, and a bunch of world leaders. I know the sitting President Trump was there at the time, all that stuff, right? So they called it the Great Reset, all right? So what is the Great Reset? Well, I'm going to postulate to you, and please, test it out, but I'm just telling you what I'm hearing in the spirit, okay? Yahweh has really been showing me a lot of different things throughout this whole past 16, 18 months, how literally our enemy, Satan, Lucifer, whatever you want to call him, is trying to mimic the Messiah or will mimic the Messiah in several different ways and in every way that we could possibly think of. One of those ways is the Great Reset. The Great Reset is the counterfeit, Lucifer-inspired version of Yahusha saying, "Behold, I make all things new," because Yahusha is going to have a great reset on this earth when he does this, whether that be, whether you're a premillennialist at with Yahusha's return or post-millennial, however you want to deal with that, regardless of when it's going to happen, right? We know that it says in Revelation 21 that I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the old had passed away, right? And this is backed up by Yahusha's words in the book of Matthew as well, and the other gospels, where he says, "Lo, I will be with you always, even to the end of the age." And he talks about, though heaven and earth may pass away, my word, Dabar, will never pass away, right? So this is what they're going to try and do. They're going to try and reset things on a different standard with different factors involved. And basically, they're going to try and create a Luciferic utopian society, okay? Basically, like their version of heaven on earth, or as, like I said, their Luciferic version of heaven on earth. All right. So then remember this quote. If you watched the teachings that we did, a couple of different teachings. So we're going to be referencing a few different teachings. Number one, the teaching that I did on COVID-19. Is it a deadly disease or the Trojan horse of the New World Order? That teaching. That's where this picture of Klaus Schwab came from. Okay. We're also going to be referencing Exodus on My Mind. Part one, the famines in FEMA, all about how they're going to use the famine that Joseph, not orchestrated the famine, but what he orchestrated to deal with the famine is how they're going to deal with the famine when it comes as well. So we'll talk about that. We even touched on, we'll even touch on the fifth part of Exodus on My Mind as well, about the Judas goats and the false prophet system and all that kind of stuff, right? So anyway, that's where we're talking about. So Klaus Schwab, this guy right here, He's a professor. He's the founder and executive chairman of this World Economic Forum. Okay. And he says this was during this Great Reset, 50th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum held last June. He said that this pandemic, or plandemic, I would change the word to, represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world. Okay, that's what we're talking about. So you can see anytime that the world leaders are involved in a reset, it definitely can't be Yahuwah inspired, although we know that Yahuwah is going to allow it to take place, because the book of Revelation chapter 17 says that he puts it into the mind of these kings to give all of their power and authority unto the beast, right? So let's get started here. So this right here is part of what they want to do with digital identity. And we're not going to talk about all these pieces in detail. I'm just putting them up there. But in my studies, this represents the beast system. Okay. So the beast is it's personified within a person. Like if you think about a not a cabinet, board, you know, a board of directors. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. But you have a board of directors, okay? And then you have sitting at the head of that table, you have the CEO, right? The one who runs everything, or the president or whatever, right? So the beast is represented within an entity, being the board of directors or a group of individuals, or like I said, an entity, but it's also represented in a man. We're going to talk about that in a second, okay? But, you know, these are some of their goals. Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2050. You hear things like sustainable development, the Internet of Things, the Green New Deal, you know, the climate change initiative, whatever, right? All these different things, okay? So if we remember this bullet point, remember going back to that Exodus on My Mind part 1, in Genesis 47, that Pharaoh moved all of the citizens in Egypt. He moved them from out of the country, out of the rural areas, into the cities. Okay, this is part of this agenda initiative that they want to have what are called smart cities. Okay, they want to have smart cities where they get people out of being independent for themselves, out off the land and into herds, if you will. All right, so that's part of what their goal is. All right, second bullet point. Again, this is from that same teaching on Exodus on My Mind part 1, famines and FEMA. You will own nothing and be happy about it. Klaus Schwab. It's a direct quote from Klaus Schwab. You will own nothing and be happy about it. Now, I'm not going to give this person's name just to protect, you know, their privacy. However, I know someone, even within our community, within the Melchizedek community, who had a friend in a Midwestern state who had, I don't know if it was a government agency or who was involved, but they came onto their property in this Midwestern state and offered them $200,000. And in exchange, they wiped out all their debt. They paid off, you know, their house, whatever they had. But they also, in addition to that, gave them $200,000. Okay. They signed over all their property, all, you know, so they still lived on their property. They still drove their car, stuff like that, but they literally owned none of it. Okay. And also, of course, they had to take 3 hot shots. All right. We're talking in code, if you know what I mean. The injection, right? So that's what we're talking about with Klaus Schwab. That's a real life example of it. It's already happened. Okay. I'm not sure exactly when it happened. I think it was like a handful of months ago, but you will own nothing and be happy about it. Well, remember, during this famine of Joseph, or in Egypt, rather, what we refer to as Joseph's famine, in the later part of Genesis, remember when it started, what did they do? Oh, I sold all my grain, or I sold all my money for grain. Oh, now I don't have any money left. Now what am I going to sell? Now I'm going to sell next, all my livestock. Oh, now I have no livestock. Now I'm just renting my livestock from the government, so to speak, from FEMA, right? Oh, next I sold all my land. Now I own nothing. And now I'm renting the land. Now I have to pay a 20% tariff, if you will, or tariff tax to Pharaoh to use the land that I used to own, right? And then last, when they had nothing else left, they sold themselves into slavery, right? So if you don't understand that, I would definitely go back and watch that teaching. I don't want to rehash it just because there's a lot there. And for time's sake, I don't want to do that. But go back and rewatch it. Part 1, Exodus on my mind, famines in FEMA. Really good information, okay? And then we also talked about within that same teaching that Bill Gates is now the largest private landowner in America. He owns over 242,000 acres of farmland, all right? So what does the beast system look like? Well, there's 2 references to it, okay? We talk about it in Daniel chapter 7, verses 7 and 8, and also Revelation 13, 16 through 18, okay? So this is what Daniel saw. Daniel 7, verse 7. And after this, in the night visions, I saw a 4th beast, fearsome and burly and exceedingly strong, or other translations say great and terrible. And it had great iron teeth, and it devoured and crushed and trampled down the rest with its feet. And it was different from all the other beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Now, in the book of Daniel, the context here is that these beasts represent kingdoms, okay? So you look at, just to give you a quick little snippet of how to properly interpret the book of Daniel. Daniel 2 talks about the statue, the head of gold, the chest of silver, the legs of brass, or the waist of brass, and the legs and feet of iron, and the toes and the feet are iron mixed with clay, right? You can go look at that. It's in Daniel 2, right? And then he talks about that Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, you represent the head of gold, right? What will come after you is the Medo-Persian Empire. That represents the silver, then the Grecian Empire, then the Roman, then the 2 legs represent the split of the Roman Empire, the east and the west, all that kind of stuff. So Daniel 2 gives you that, okay? Then you go and look at Daniel 7, okay? And then Daniel 8 gives further interpretation as well. And then I think it's on into Daniel 9, I want to say, okay? But the 4 beasts that are mentioned in Daniel 7 are the same 4 kingdoms that are mentioned in Daniel 2. And that's what I want to just emphasize here for you, okay? So this 4th beast, obviously it comes last. So there is the beast that we've seen has been the lion with the wings of an eagle, right? Then we saw a bear, and then we see a leopard, a 4-headed leopard. I think it also has wings as well. Then in verse 7, he sees this 4th beast. It's a great and terrible beast, exceedingly strong, has great iron teeth. It devoured and crushed and trampled down the rest with its feet. And it was different than all the other beasts before it, okay? And it had 10 horns, all right? And we'll get into more of, what those 10 horns are. But if you read the book of Revelation, chapter 17, it actually tells you, and also Daniel backs this up as well as they speak to one another, talking about the 10 horns represent 10 kings. And Revelation 17 tells us that these 10 kings have no kingdom. So they're not in control as of yet. They don't have a kingdom yet, but they will give their power unto the beast and rule with him for a short time, or for 1 hour. Okay. So then in verse 8, it says, I was thinking about the horns. So I was pondering the horns, and then I saw another horn, a little one. This is where the term little horn comes from, coming up among them. And 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots before it. And see, eyes like the eyes of a man were in this horn, and a mouth speaking great or pompous words. So this is what I'm talking about with the beast. So the beast is a system, an entity, but it's also representation of a man. Hence the little horn having eyes like the eyes of a man were in this horn, and a mouth speaking great words. Okay, makes sense so far? And then, so that's, and that, what I would do is, and I've actually done this before, it's a really, really great study, but to lay out side by side on a T-chart, write out Daniel 7, okay, on the left side, and write out Revelation 13, 1 through 10, I believe it is, on the right side. And you'll see all the similarities, that all the portions of this beast coming out of the sea, or the first beast, it's known as the beast of the sea, or the first beast of Revelation 13, it matches what we see in Daniel 7. Really awesome study to check out for yourself. All right. Then Revelation 13. Now this, in the second half of the chapter, is talking about the false prophet beast system. So again, you have 2 beasts in Revelation 13. Revelation 13, 1 through 10 is the first beast, or the beast from the sea, which represents, you know it as, which we covered this, I think, in part 6 of Exodus on my mind, the end time Pharaoh, right? We talked about that. So he represents what we call the Antichrist, or the anti-Messiah, the beast, the lawless one, the son of perdition, right? The Assyrian is another name. The end time Pharaoh, like I already said, is another name. But so that first beast is a system, but it's also representation of a man. Hence the board of directors and the CEO, right? Or the president, if you will. Okay. Then the second half of Revelation 13 also is twofold. It's a beast system. It's a system of the beast, but then it's also representation and a personification of a man known as the false prophet, which we touched on that in Exodus on my mind, part 5, talk about the Judas goat, the prophets of Balaam, right? So this is what we're referencing here in Revelation 13, 16. I just wanted to give you a little bit of context, a little bit of background here. So it says that he, being the false prophet, causes all, both small and great, rich and poor. Small and great is a reference in the Greek there to the little ones, the little tykes, the children, to great being the elderly, the elders. Okay, rich and poor is, of course, it's no respecter of persons, right? Whether you're rich or whether you're poor, you're going to have this mark. Obviously, unless you are written in the Lamb's Book of Life, then you would not get this mark. But that's a whole different subject. Free and slave, right? So that's why, whether you're in prison, whether you're in jail, whatever, they want everyone to have it, right? And to be given a mark upon their right hand or upon their foreheads. And this is where this is going to verse 17, that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name, which we've touched on this before, that there's 3 things, actually 4 things, that we all have to avoid in order to overcome the beast. Okay, this is how we overcome, right? So we avoid his mark, we avoid his name, we avoid his number, which we're going to touch on, y'all willing, next time. And we also have to avoid bowing down to his image or become into the image of the beast, right? So that's what we're talking about here. And then, of course, verse 18, here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is a number of a man. His number is 666. And this is, of course, what Christianity's taught us to focus on. They literally just teach us to focus on the 666, and that's it. But my point is, it's a beast system. Okay, it's a beast system ran by the media, also ran by an individual known as the false prophet. All right, so I said all that to give us a good background of where things are heading. Okay, hopefully that all makes sense. All right, so let's touch on this. Why and how does the world fall under a one world currency? What causes it to occur? Well, if we back up just for a second, we see in Daniel 7 that this whole world will be encompassed by the beast and the beast system. Okay, it says in verse 7 that it had great iron teeth, and it devoured and crushed and trampled down the rest with its feet. So there's 3 levels there of persecution, if you will. It devours, right? Just like 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 5, verse 8. Oh my gosh. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. There we go. That it talks about that the devil, be sober, be vigilant, for the devil roams around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. We know that the dragon, the great dragon in Revelation 12, tried to devour the woman's child, right? He's the devourer. He comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy, right? He's the devourer. So it devoured and crushed and trampled down with its feet. And it was different than all beasts before it, different than all kingdoms before it. I would postulate that we could even call this, dare I say, the rise of the Fourth Reich. Okay? And that's all I'll say about that. All right? That's why it happens, though. All right? That's what causes it to occur, because you have this one world currency that everyone's going to be on the same level playing field. There's not going to be this discrepancy in value between the dollar and a Zimbabwe dollar, or the dollar and a won, or the dollar and a mark, or et cetera. Okay, they're all going to be on the same playing field, all equally traded. All right. So, what causes this to occur, though? Well, I call this, and this might just be a made-up term, but that's okay. But I call it the scourge of Yahweh. Okay, it's threefold. Okay, it's the sword, it's famine, it's pestilence. All right, where does it come from? Well, let's look. It's called the fourth seal, or the pale horse, or the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. Now, one thing I want to touch on real quick is we got to understand, if you don't have this understanding already, we need to get it, is that who is holding this scroll and who is breaking the seals on the scroll? Well, it's Yahusha. How do we know that? If we go to Revelation chapter 5, we can see that in Revelation chapter 5, verse 8, it's either one of the elders or one of the 4 living creatures cries out, because everyone's weeping in heaven, saying that there's no one worthy in heaven or on the earth or under the earth to take the scroll and to loose its 7 seals, or to read it, or to look at it even, right? But then in verse 8 it says, weep not, or do not weep, for behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, he has prevailed, and he is worthy to take the scroll out of the one seated on this throne and open or break the 7 seals, for he was slain. So who's holding the scroll? Yahusha's holding the scroll. All right. Very important to keep our eye on that, which is why I believe that that's there in Revelation 4 and 5. It's a focal point to give you something to focus on, just like Stephen was focusing on. He wasn't focusing on those stoning him. His eyes were fixed on the author and finisher of his faith, which allowed him to endure unto the end, which is what we need to do as well. So say all that to say this, as Matthew would say. Revelation 6, verse 7 and 8. And when he, Yahusha, opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature say, come and see. And I looked and saw a pale chloros horse, and he who sat on it had the name Death, and the grave, or Sheol, followed with him. And authority was given to them over a fourth of the earth to kill with sword, with hunger, and with death, or pestilence, or plague. As you can see here, they're synonymous, and by the beasts of the earth. So authority was given over to them. Who gave them the authority? Yahusha did. Okay? This is how he operates. We're going to talk about this. We talked about the cyclical of the Torah portions earlier. Now we're going to see it in living color, so to speak, here, right here. Okay. See, a lot of people lose focus because they think that Satan's in control. No. Satan has been released for an hour. Okay. For a short period of time. He's not in control though. He's being empowered, if you will, by Yahusha, because it's called the hour of trial. So he uses Satan to refine his bride, okay, refine the body of Mashiach, and also bring judgment upon the world. Okay, that's what's happening here. All right. So, but the judgments of Yahweh are cyclical in nature, just like the shape of this circle right here, right? Several times this scourge is used to bring judgment upon his people for refinement, right? The refiner's fire, and upon the world itself. Sword, famine, and pestilence are referenced together 23 separate verses. It's referenced in 2 Chronicles. It's referenced in also the prophets of Jeremiah and Ezekiel. And we're also going to take a look at what the word famine means in both Hebrew and the Greek, along with some of these references. All right. All right. So we can see sword, famine, pestilence. We can see the four horsemen of the apocalypse here in the background, as they're so called. So let's look at some references here. So 2 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 9. If evil does come upon us, such as sword, judgment, pestilence, or scarcity of food, famine, we shall stand before his house and in your presence, for your name is in this house. And we cry out to you in our distress, and you do hear and you save. Hallelujah. So the righteous, we're not going to have to worry about the things that the unrighteous, the wicked, are going to have to worry about. Okay. Just like we touched on I think it's being empowered by the spirit of Elijah, or walking in the power of spirit of Elijah teaching. Elijah, even in the midst of the famine, he was fed by the widow. He never lacked, and the woman never lacked. The widow never lacked. Her child never lacked either. And also he was fed another time by going to the brook by the river there, and ravens even fed him, right? So Yahusha made it very clear in the Beatitudes in Matthew chapter 6, to not worry about what we will eat, what we will wear, all those kind of things, right? He's going to take care of us. For are we not more valuable than the lilies of the field? Are we not more valuable than the birds of the air, right? Amen. So then in Jeremiah 14, verse 12, this is a judgment upon Israel and Yehuda. When they fast, I do not hear their cry. When they offer burnt offering and grain offering, I do not accept them. Instead, I am consuming them by sword, by famine, and by pestilence. Jeremiah chapter 21, verse 7, and afterward declares Yahweh, I give Zedekiah, sovereign of Yehuda, and his servants, the people, such as are left in this city, Jerusalem, from the pestilence, the sword, and the scarcity of food, into the hand of the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, into the hand of their enemies, and into the hand of those who seek their life. He shall smite them with the edge of the sword. He shall not pardon them, nor spare, nor have compassion. Okay? This was the big theme here in Jeremiah and also in Ezekiel, when you read these references, is the coming judgment of Babylon coming for Jerusalem if you don't repent. And guess what? They didn't repent. And Judah was judged, along with, Israel, the house of Israel, was judged earlier, a couple hundred years earlier, when the Assyrians came, right? So then verse 9, whoever stays in this city dies by the sword, by scarcity of food, and by pestilence. But whoever goes out and shall go over to the Chaldeans who besiege you is going to live, and his life shall be a prize to him. And then in Ezekiel chapter 5, verse 12, 1/3 of you shall die of pestilence and be consumed with scarcity of food in your midst, and 1/3 shall fall by the sword all around you. And I shall scatter another third into the winds and draw out a sword after them. So it's talking about part of the dispersion right there as well, right? And then Yahusha references this as well in Matthew chapter 24, which is probably also referenced in Mark 13 and Luke 21 as well. I just don't have the verses up here. But he says regarding these times, the Jacob's trouble, the birth pains, the beginning of sorrows, he says, for nation will rise against nation. Well, there's your sword right there. Reign against reign, or kingdom against kingdom. There shall be scarcities of food and deadly diseases, or pestilence, and earthquakes in diverse places, right? So let's look at the word famine. So the word famine, it comes from the black horse. We're going to talk about more on the black horse next week, or next time, y'all willing. But it's the word Rahab in the Hebrew. Okay, Strong's 7458. The Torah is first mentioned, or the first time that it's mentioned in the Torah, in the scriptures, is Genesis 12:10. Okay, and a scarcity of food came to be in the land, and Abram went down to Mitzrayim to dwell there, for the scarcity of food, or the famine, was severe in the land. This, I believe, is the first time when he went down to Mitzrayim. This is when he lied to the Pharaoh and told them that Sarai was not his wife, but was his sister. Okay, that whole encounter that happened. So Rahab from 7456, hunger, more or less extensive, dearth, famine, famished, hunger. There's a total of 101 references in the KJV. Okay, let's look at the Greek. Strong's G3042, same Genesis 12:10 is there. Limos from 3007, G3007, through the idea of destitution, a scarcity of food, dearth, famine, hunger, same type of thing. References are 12. So some of the references here are from this known as the black horse, or the third horseman of the apocalypse. Revelation 6, verse 5 and 6 says this. And he, again, Yahusha, opened the third seal, and I heard the third living creature say, come and see. And I looked and saw a black horse, and he who sat on it, holding a pair of scales, like as in balancing scales, like these, in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, a quart of wheat for a denarius, or a day's wage, and 3 quarts of barley for a day's wage. And do not harm the oil and the wine. Now, one thing we have to understand, in order to understand these horsemen of the apocalypse, so to speak, we have to go back to look at the book of Zechariah, chapter 6. Okay, we're going to talk about more on this next time as well. I'm just laying the foundation right now, and then we're going to get into where we're at today. But these are spirits that go from the midst of the throne across the earth. Okay, so it's a spirit of famine. It's a spirit of the pale horse. It's a spirit of the red horse, which represents war, possibly as Matthew's talked about, maybe it represents also communism as well, right? So the Oxford, we'll look at the Oxford and we'll look at the Merriam-Webster definition for these. So the Oxford definition of famine, pretty simple. It's an extreme scarcity of food, right? Just like they had back in Joseph's time in Genesis 47. Merriam-Webster has 4 different variations of this definition. Number 1, it's the same, an extreme scarcity of food. Okay. They have starvation as number 2, a ravenous appetite. Number 3, a great shortage. Okay. A great shortage. So a great shortage of something. Okay. We'll talk about that. All right. So next, we're going to talk about, like I said, kind of where we were before the pandemic and where we are now. Now, you can see in the background here is a bull. If you're familiar with the New York Stock Exchange, outside the Merrill Lynch building, which has been bought out or joined together with Bank of America, they have the bull. Okay, literally a modern day version of the golden calf. Yahushua said it very clear. You can't serve 2 masters. You will love one and hate the other. You can't serve Yahweh and Mammon, which Mammon is literally a deity of a fortune, of money, right? So no bull about it. It's really happening. Okay, it's really happened. 2019 versus 2021 in most cases. Some cases it's 2020 versus 2021. Okay, so I'll put that out there. But this is really happening. So we got our own golden calf right there in New York City. Okay, 2019, the inflation rate was 1.76% in America. In 2021, it's 5.3%, 5.30%. Now, let me ask a question. Did anyone get a 5% raise? I mean, some people might have, right? But not everybody. So now our dollar is not going as far as it used to go in 2019, pre-pandemic. Now let's keep going. National debt, okay? National debt is in 2019 was just under $17 trillion. $17 trillion. That's a lot of money, okay? We have million, then we have billion, and then a million billions is a trillion, right? A million millions is a billion, a million billions is a trillion, just to give you an idea of how that scale works there, okay? So almost $17 trillion in national debt on that. Remember that national debt clock that I showed you guys back in the COVID-19? Is it a deadly pandemic or the Trojan horse of the New World Order? That's where that information came from. So when I did that teaching 6 months ago, it was $27.186 trillion then. But even since then, it's increased another $1.2 trillion to now in 2021. This was Thursday, I think, when I put together the slide, Wednesday or Thursday, because that thing is always counting. Okay, it never stops. You can literally sit there and watch it, and you're like, oh my gosh. And it shows all different variations of debt. It shows national debt. It shows all sorts of categories: credit card debt, car loan debt, housing debt, all this stuff. But it averages out to every American citizen $85,000 bounty upon every American citizen. That's what it equates to, $85,000. That's a lot of money. All right. And we're talking about everyone from, a 9-month-old to a 90-year-old, right? Everywhere in between. Okay. So it's gone up from 2019. It's gone up $11.5 trillion. $11.5 trillion. Wow. That is a short amount of time. We're talking about, depending on when these factors were actually measured, we could be talking about 18 months if it was the end of 2019 to now halfway through 2021, or maybe we're talking about 24 months or 2 years where, it was the middle of 2019 when this was measured, and it's the middle of 2021. regardless, still a really short amount of time, 18 to 24 months. It goes up $11.5 trillion. So not good. Well, U.S. federal debt to GDP, or the gross domestic, GDP is the gross domestic product. It's a monetary measure of the market of value of all the final goods and services produced in a specific period of time by a country. Okay, so the GDP, so they have this ratio called the federal debt to GDP ratio. In 2019, it was 79%. Okay, that's not good, but it got even worse. Look at it now in 2021. That same percent is now 128%. That's an increase of 49.09%, folks. That means that essentially our credit in the nations got that much worse. Our debt went up that much. Imagine if you did this in your household. You know, your debt to your income ratio was 79%, and now it's 128%. Well, folks, that's called not having, you have too much month than money, right? You're broke. You're below broke because you literally don't have money to pay your bills. Hence why I'm bringing this up. America doesn't have money to pay her bills. So what's the solution? Well, we'll talk about that in a second. All right. So let's talk about the average home price. December 2019, the average home price in America was $331,400. December 2020, the average home price is almost $356,000, an increase of $24,500. Now, if you're a homeowner, you're thinking, hey, this is great. You know, I can refinance, I can get some cash out. My home's worth more. I could sell it, you know, it sells for higher. But this affects everything. This affects buyers. Okay. You know, that home that, oh man, yeah, that our budget, yeah, it's 331. Well, guess what? You waited a year, boom, now it went up to 356. Now you can't afford the home. Or you have to stretch further to afford the home, or save up more of your down payment, or however you want to slice it. Somewhere it's got the pie's got to be accounted for somewhere, right? But this also affects rent prices because, you know, if you're living in a house and your landlord's value of the home goes up, well, then guess what? It's more valuable. Therefore, he or she can raise the rent, right? So it affects everyone. It doesn't just affect homeowners. It affects all tenants, okay? Now, June 2020, okay, so this is literally a 12-month time period here. 8.55% of American homeowners were in the FB here, okay? That's not Facebook. It's forbearance. Are you familiar with the term forbearance? It's where you have a situation that happens, whether, you know, you're in the hospital for a elongated period of time, or you lose your job, or, you know, or an economic situation all across the nation happens, you know, like a pandemic, whatever. And you basically can stop paying your mortgage, and you post date your payments. You put them to the back of the loan, okay? Or sometimes they'll do it where there's a lot of different ways you can do it, where you can do it for, like, let's say you go on forbearance for 6 months. So you're not making your mortgage payment for 6 months. Then at the end of that 6 months, you have to make a huge lump sum payment in order to get back on track with your bank, or else they'll report you to your credit bureau, you know, possibly foreclose on you, et cetera, you know. So over this past 18 months, here's what's been happening. And I spent 4 years in the mortgage industry, okay? I recently departed from it, but I spent 4 years in it. So I'm very, you know, familiar with the mortgages portion of this, okay? So you could do this, you know, at first they were offering it for like 90 days. And literally anybody, even if you didn't lose your job, they weren't even checking back last spring of 2020. Okay. They weren't even checking. But I dealt with clients who literally, they said, hey, all I had to do was like my my servicer emailed me and said, do I want to participate in forbearance? You know, do I want mortgage assistance? And then all I did was like reply back yes, or click one button or whatever, and it was done. So it was quick. It was easy to do. Most people didn't even know what they were doing. They didn't know that it would affect their credit. They didn't know that it would affect their chances of doing a refinance, you know, which it does. You have to have a clean history of monthly payments and not be in forbearance in order to do a refinance. Most people just thought, hey, free money, whatever, not pay my bills. Hey, whatever, cool. You know, yeah, I'll take it. You know, some people pocketed the money. Some people went on trips. I mean, did a lot of crazy stuff with it. Anyway, the point is, it could last for 3 months, 6 months, as much as like 18 months. That's a long time to not be paying your mortgage. You know, if we really broke this down, so 8.55% of homeowners, American homeowners, were in forbearance in June of 2020. Okay, that represents 7 million homeowners. We were going off of estimates that there's about 82 million single family home dwellings in America. It doesn't include, you know, investment properties, second homes, anything like that. We're just going off of single family homes, that there's 82 million homeowners. 7 million of them weren't paying their mortgage. Now, if you really wanted to get crazy, you could say, okay, well, what's the average mortgage payment? Well, let's say it was $1,500, right? Principal and interest, say it's $1,500. Well, now you could take that and multiply that by 7 million. That's how many dollars are not going to mortgage lenders, mortgage servicers. You get the drift. What's happening, right? Where's the money going? So March 2021, it's still almost 5% here. And that represents 4.1 million homeowners that still aren't paying their mortgage in some form, shape, or fashion. And again, this also affected evictions. You know, landlords haven't been able to evict tenants who haven't paid their rent. I mean, the domino effect here, you can kind of see what's going on. Okay. Now let's talk about mortgage rates. So 2019, the average 30-year fixed rate was just under 4%, 3.94%. June of 2021, the average is 3.25%. So it decreased in almost 0.7%. Now, this was a big thing because this was one of the giant pacifiers that they gave the American people to suck on, to distract them from what was really taking place. Because folks, like I've been saying, even though it's been completely unpopular, and I understand that, but this has never been about a so-called virus, ever. This has always been about breaking the system to bring forth the new world order and keep people distracted while they were doing it. All right, so let's look at lumber costs. 2019 lumber costs. They have a ratio called a dollar amount per 1,000 feet of board. So in 2019, that dollar amount was $359 per 1,000 feet or 1,000 board feet. Okay, 1,000 feet of board. In 2021, now in May, it was as high as $1,683 for the same 1,000 board feet. And currently, this month, this is just a few days ago, this is something that's openly traded on the stock market, so it changes throughout the day. It's still $884. This is an increase of 256%. What does this look like? Well, the same 2x4 by 8 foot long, I believe is what your standard 2x4 is, used to run you $2 to $3 per 2x4. Now it's costing $8 to $9 to $10 depending on when you get it. Okay, that gives you an idea. Plywood. I mean, people are paying. They used to pay, $10, $20 for an OSB sheet of plywood, which is a very thick. It's what we use for subfloorings in homes in America, and you need hundreds of them, to make your flooring secure and everything like that. They used to cost you $20, $30. Now these same are costing $70, $80, $90. I mean, think about what this does to, you're trying to build a deck, you're trying to build a gazebo, you're trying to build a greenhouse, you're trying to build a chicken coop, you're trying to build anything, you're trying to build a house. It's so expensive now to build a house. It's crazy. Okay. You guys can check it out yourself. Corn is up from 2020 to 2021, it's up 91%. Soybeans are up 74%, 2020 to 2021. Boneless, skinless chicken breasts were 93 cents a pound last year. Now they're $1.91 per pound. That's over a 200% increase. Meat is up 5.1%, April to April. Trucking, the cost of fuel, right? It used to cost a coast-to-coast trip from the West Coast to the East Coast, or the East Coast to the West Coast, used to cost you $6,000 to $7,000 to make that trip. Now it costs $12,000 on a good day. So everything is being affected. All right. So now we're going to talk about just how corrupt and broken this system is. So just print more. All right. So stimulus money handed out. There's been 3 stimulus so far. There's a 4th one rumored. Okay. We had one in March 2020 for $900 billion. Now, of course, all this $4.8 trillion didn't go to the American people. We know there's a lot of foreign money involved. There's a lot of other crazy stuff where it's like, wait a minute, you guys just used us as collateral, but you didn't give us the $4.8 trillion. Anyway, I digress. You guys understand. But the $900 billion went out in March 2020. In December 2020, another $1.2 trillion went out. And in March 2021, another $1.9 trillion went out. A total of $4.8 trillion in what I refer to it as hush money, as in, shh, be quiet, don't make a noise. Just keep wearing your mask, keep getting tested, keep social distancing. Just 2 more weeks, folks. We're in week we're in day 500 of this. I don't even know what we're in anymore. But the point is, hey, just be quiet. Just calm down. Here you go. Here's your pacifier. Oh, you're a screaming baby. Okay, here you go, little pacifier. There you go. Here, have some interest rates. Here, have some stimulus money. I know you lost your job. I know your business closed. I know all this stuff happened to you. You can't pay your mortgage. You can't pay your car payment. You can't do this. You can't do that. But here, just take this. It'll all be over. Don't worry. This will all blow over. Just 2 more weeks. Just 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks to flatten the curve. Meanwhile, they're trying to break the system, right? So let's talk about Monopoly for a second. That board game that we all love to play, except we don't play it on Shabbat because that would stir up a kindle a fire on Shabbat, especially if you don't get the properties that you wanted. Like me, I'm always wanting Boardwalk and Park Place. And I will say, in my fleshly, childly nature, several years ago, I used to lose it when I would not get, throw tantrums when I would not get Boardwalk and Park Place. But I digress. But Monopoly. So there's a rule in Monopoly that the bank can never, quote, go broke. The bank can never go broke. If more money is needed, if the bank in Monopoly runs out of money, completely runs out of all those paper dollar bills, that more money should just be made. Literally, you can take a sheet of notebook paper and just say, oh, okay, hey, yep, let's make this strip $500, $500, $500, $100. You get it. Okay. Any denomination you want, 500, 150, 20, 10, 5s and 1s, anything you want, just print more. And that's exactly what the Federal Reserve did. The Federal Reserve has injected $9 trillion into the market since September of 2019. It's an estimated 22% of the money in circulation today was printed, as in created, in the year 2020. Well, let's talk about supply and demand. If you overfill the market with just printing more money, doesn't that devalue the dollar? Doesn't that make your money worth less? Yeah, it does. It's called inflation. It's called even hyperinflation, right? So let's talk about those interest rates. So Trump had the Federal Reserve chairman, I don't even know his name, cut the interest rates twice in early 2020. He cut them once from 1% to 0.5%, and then again during the midst of the pandemic, he cut it down to 0. The only thing below 0 is negative interest rates, which would mean that the Federal Reserve would pay mortgage lenders to offer mortgages to their clients. Meaning we're in a bad place, folks, because they have no plans of raising the interest rate, the Federal Reserve interest rate, I think until 2022 or maybe it's 2023. Okay. The Federal Reserve was lending money to mortgage lenders for virtually nothing for the past 18 months. Now, in return, remember the pacifier, the hush money, right? Because what are the two things they did? Oh, here you go. Here's your stimulus check. Oh, here you go. That's okay. I'm sorry you lost your job. I know we called you non-essential. You know, what we deemed essential and is non-essential. You know, we said you couldn't go to the beach, but you could go to a Walmart. You can go to a CVS. You can go to a Target. You can go to all these big box corporations. But, practice social distancing while you're in there and wear your mask. But, you can't go to the beach and hang out by yourself. You're a threat to yourself. And therefore, we will surround you with 8 police officers, invade your social distancing place, your bubble, if you will, for your safety, right? Or was it for draconian measures? I don't know. But anyway, this got so crazy that on the private market, you have Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. They own the private market mortgages, or what are known as conventional mortgages. They got mad at the Federal Reserve and they wanted a piece, because what was happening is mortgage lenders were turning around and taking that 0% money that they were getting from the Fed and offering, rates as low as right around like the low 2s, depending on the type of mortgage that you were trying to get. But I'm talking for a 30-year fixed rate, low 2s, like 2.25, 2.125, something like that, really low. And we're taking people from like 3.5%, 4.5% down to this. It's like, oh my gosh, yeah, you're saving money, all that stuff, just to keep them quiet, just so they don't revolt. Hey, please hold on while we let the New World Order take over. Please hold on while we install the New World Order. That's literally what was happening. Okay. But the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they got upset. So they wanted 0.5% of that cushion, from the 0 to 2%. They wanted 0.5% for themselves, So anyhow, it just created a whole mess. Let's talk about student loan debt. Brother Jose he just touched on a few weeks back, the whole Jubilee cycles, right? So now they began to start their own Luciferic Jubilee cycles of forgiving. They forgave $90 billion in student loan debt last year. And then Biden just got the approval to do another $500 million. I don't know why you do such a small amount, but whatever. But they've done $90.5 billion in student loan debt that's been forgiven. Literally, I know people who talked about it on Facebook. Whoa, my student loans are gone, But meanwhile, oh wait, did they, like, the people who paid off their student loan, did they like write them a check and say, hey, here's your $50,000. I know you paid it off with your hard-earned money and you actually did what you should have done. But here you go, here's 50 grand. No, but again, it's hush money. Oh, hey, look how cool we are, man. Awesome. We gave you the stimulus. We gave you lower interest rates. You can save money on your mortgage, helping you out. We even made it where you don't have to pay your mortgage. And we're giving away, forgiving your student loan debt. Aren't we great? Aren't we awesome? No, it's all a Luciferic agenda. They're trying to break the system. Remember, okay, $4.8 trillion has been given out. Oh, now we understand why this number went from 17 trillion to almost 28.5 trillion. I mean, 4.8 out of that, that's a big chunk just by itself. right? All right, moving on. Let's talk about national unemployment rates. Okay, so pre-pandemic, the national unemployment rate was 4%. Okay, in April 2020, it peaked to 15%, and it took until February of 2021 to get it back down to 6%, or right around 6%. Okay, so what does that look like? Now, keep in mind, so I'm basing this off a 330 million population. Okay, all 3 of these years, if we know population fluctuates, all that kind of stuff, right? That 157.5 million people were employed in 2019 out of 330 million. That means that 53.3% of America was not working. Now, this accounts for children, this accounts for elderly who are retired, all that stuff. It's not saying that 53% of people who could have been working weren't working. Okay, just want to clarify that. In 2021, it dropped 10 million. So 148 million where people were employed. So 56.3% of America was not working. 2021, it has improved a little bit, but it's not where it was pre-pandemic. 153.7 million people are employed, but still 54.5% of America is not working. Okay. Well, the debt. Well, who runs the debt? Well, there's like $7 or $8 trillion in debt that's owed to people, to countries overseas. Japan owns $1.276 trillion in US debt. China owns just over $1 trillion in US debt. And other countries combined for another $4.7 trillion in US debt. But just keep printing. Just keep printing, just keep making it. All right. So let's keep moving on here. And I'm almost done with these slides, and then we'll wrap up with a summary. But Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. You know that nursery rhyme that Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses, all the king's men, they couldn't put Humpty together again. Well, guess what? Same thing with America. America had a great fall. Just how great? Well, let's look. So this little cliff right here before this line is representative right around February 16th, 2020. The stock market, the New York Stock Exchange, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was at 28,992 points. Okay. In the lowest valley right here, right before April, a couple weeks before April, on March 15th, it dropped to 19,713 points. That's a loss of almost 9,300 points. Let's just do easy math. It almost lost a third of its value in 30 days. All right. A third of its value in 30 days. And then, of course, miraculously, it starts going back up. Well, we'll talk about that in a second. Okay. So now this is all from Reuters. Okay. This graph over here says the coronavirus has created such an uncertainty around the world that two of the largest single day drops in the Dow Jones Industrial Average have been from March 2020. Now let's look at history here. So you got October 28th and 29th of 1929, rather. Okay. That is what is known as the beginning of the Great Depression. Okay. That's when the stock market got so high, and dropped like really, really hard. Okay. That was really the end of the true American gold-backed financial system. Okay. That was really the end of it right then. Ever since then, we've been on a fiat currency. Okay. But on that day, on October 28th, 1929, the stock market dropped to right around, we'll just call this like 13.5%. Okay. And then the next day, it dropped another 12%. So what they're saying now, they're saying that two of the biggest drops, largest one-day drops in history, occurred on March 12th. It dropped 10%. And in March 16th, it dropped 13%. So just how bad was how bad of an economic situation are we in? We're in a really bad economic situation. We'll talk about that more in a second. So we got these breaker systems. So the breaker system in the stock market triggered 4 times in 2020. It triggered on March the 9th, March the 12th, March the 16th, all within the first hour of trading. The market dropped 7% or more than what the previous market close was from the previous day, or in most cases it was, from the weekend, from the Friday, right? In the case of the 16th, for sure. Okay. Then on the 18th, it was tripped again, but it was later in the day, that same 7% drop. All trading got halted for 15 minutes in all 4 of these instances. And they had only been triggered once. The breakers had only been triggered once previously in 1997. 1997. Okay. That means that during the market crash, the housing market crash of 2008 and 09, it didn't occur. It didn't happen. So just how bad of a situation are we in? Pretty bad, because we know how bad the market crash of 2008 and 09 was. And yet, here you go. Oh, here you go. Stimulus money. Oh, enjoy that lower interest rate. Oh, enjoy not paying your mortgage. Oh, enjoy that free student loan debt. Just keep doing it. Just keep printing more, right? So how do these circuit breakers work? Well, the current guidelines mandate a 15-minute pause or halt in trading on all U.S. stock market exchanges if the S&P 500 index falls more than 7% before 3:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The breakers are set up to calm the markets by halting trading as it grows more and more volatile. The first 2 levels of breaks are set to halt trading for 15 minutes, while a level 3 will suspend trading for the rest of the day. So we had 4 level 1 drops, 7% drops right here, March 9th, 12th, 16th, and 18th, where they halted trading for 15 minutes. Okay. They never had a level 2, and they never had a level 3 where they would have halted trading for the rest of the day. However, here's the catch, because you're like, okay, well, it dropped like a bad habit here in 30 days time, less than, but then it started going back up. Well, why is that? Well, interestingly enough, on March the 23rd, 2020, the New York Stock Exchange went fully electronic, meaning they did not have day traders on the floor doing paper trades anymore. This is per Yahoo Finance. Now, currently, as of 6/20/2021, the current price on the New York Stock Exchange, Dow Jones Industrial Average, is $33,929. So, that whole speech, all those speeches that Trump had given last year, later in the year, where he said, the China virus came in and, it hurt our economy, it wounded our economy, but we're back. We built it better back, twice. We built the greatest economy the world has ever seen twice. All those pompous words that he would say, right? It's all fugazi. It's all fake. It's all fraudulent. They switched from a manual system that had been in place for who knows how many years, to fully electronic. So now they could take the already rigged system of the stock market and make it even more rigged, so they could just keep kicking the can down the street and nobody would notice that our economy is failing. So that's why it started going back up. Make sense? All right. Last slide on these facts. So I would postulate to you that Babylon has already fallen, as Revelation 14, that third messenger in Revelation 14 shouts, Babylon is fallen, is fallen, is fallen. Right now, we're just waiting for the fallout of it. So now let's talk about fractional banking for a second. Anyone familiar with fractional banking? This is according to thebalance.com. How fractional banking works. How reserve banking works. So banking, 90% of all money is just digits in our accounts, literally backed by nothing. Let me explain. The supply of money grows when banks show money as deposits while simultaneously lending out funds as loans. When you deposit money into your account, the bank shows 100% of the money in your account balance, but the bank is allowed to lend 90% of your money, your deposited money, to other clients. So this almost doubles the amount of money in the economy. As an illustration, we assume we create a brand new economy and you add the first $1,000 to the system. You deposit $1,000 into your bank account. The system now has $1,000. The bank can lend, excuse me, 90% of your deposit, or $900, to other clients. Those clients can borrow the full $900 and you still have $1,000 in your account. So the system now has $1,900. The customers spend the $900 they borrowed, and the recipients of that money deposit the $900 into their bank. That bank can lend 90% of that $900, or $810 of the new deposit. Customers borrow the $810. You still have the $1,000 in your account, and so the recipients of the first 900 still have the money available in their accounts. So now the system has $2,710, $1,000 that you initially deposited, the $900 that the second people deposited, and the $810 that the third people deposited. The cycle is known as the money multiplier continuum. Basically, it's as simple as this. It's if every person was to go and withdraw all their money out of their banks all at once, only about 10% of the entire amount of money that's in your bank is actually available in cold hard cash, which on top of that cold hard cash is backed by nothing. It's literally paper, right? So you see how fraudulent the system is. Now in 2019, here's what's really interesting. In 2019, 1,640 CEOs resigned. Now, obviously, some of these are Fortune 500 companies, but some of them are not, with 160 resigning in the month of December 2019. This is per CNBC News. So the bigwigs, they knew it was coming. They knew what was coming and what's still coming. Okay, they knew it was coming. They sold off their stock. Men like Bill Gates, he resigned from Microsoft as a CEO. There's been other numerous CEOs that resigned, really, really well-known ones as well. All right. So why is all this happening? Excuse me. Well, in the end times, it says in the day of Yahweh, Ezekiel 7 verse 19 says, they throw their silver into the streets and their gold becomes as filth. Their silver and gold is unable to deliver them in the day of wrath of Yahweh, of the wrath of Yahweh. They do not satisfy their appetite, nor fill their stomachs, because it has been their stumbling block of crookedness. Your gold and your silver have become rusty. James 5, 3 and 4. Their rust shall be as a witness against you, and you shall eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasure in the last days. See the wages of the workmen who have mowed your fields, which you kept back, cry out. And the cries of the reapers have reached the ears of Yahweh of hosts. Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 18, neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the day of wrath of Yahweh. And by the fire of his jealousy, all the earth shall be consumed, for he makes a sudden end of all those who dwell in the earth. Revelation 6, verse 6, bringing up that black horse again. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, a quart of wheat for a denarius, or a day's wage, 3 quarts of barley for a day's wage, and do not harm the oil and the wine. Revelation 18:8 says, and because of this, her plague shall come in one day. That same sudden end that's mentioned in Zephaniah here. Death, mourning, and scarcity of food. She shall be burned up with fire, because Yahweh Elohim, who judges her, is mighty. In verse 11, and the merchants of the earth weep and mourn over her because no one buys their merchandise anymore. It's all gonna burn when the fallout comes. All right, so quick recap here. So the Great Reset, part one here. So we can see we learned in this teaching, this presentation, that the Great Reset is nothing more than a Luciferic inspired counterfeit of Yahusha making all things new, which will be the actual Great Reset of the earth when he does that, because he's going to make all things new. He's going to right every wrong. Every high place he's going to tear down. Every valley he's going to raise up, right? We talked about Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2050, the Georgia Guidestones, the depopulation agenda, the sustainable development, right? If you're not familiar with the Georgia Guidestones, the people who built that, which no one really knows who erected it, but they say that we should maintain a world population of 500 million or less. Now, just to give you an idea, there's roughly between 7.5 and 8 billion people on the world, in the world right now. It's a lot of people they want to get rid of, just needless to say, right? We talked about the scourge of Yahweh, that Yahweh's continued to declare the end from the beginning. This idea of sword, famine, and pestilence within the pale horse is not a new idea or even a New Testament idea, but it is cyclical. He's used it all throughout biblical history. We talked about the black horse of Revelation 6:6, how it causes hyperinflation, which leads to famine, right? One kind of goes with the other. And we talked about the pre-plandemic conditions versus our current situation. Remember, when you're playing Monopoly, the next time the bank can never run out of money. And we can see now just how fragile and broken and fraudulent our financial system is. And we also talked about the fractional banking, how if you were to go into your bank account, if every person in the world was to go to their bank account all at once, only about 10% of what is represented in the digits could actually be extracted from their bank, okay? And Babylon has indeed fallen. We're just waiting for the fallout. That's really all that's happened here. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed this teaching of the Great Reset and how we talked about paving the way for the one world currency, which is also the number of the beast, or the beast systems, money program or digital currency, however you want to refer to it as. But last thing I want to leave you with is Yahweh bless you and keep you and make his face shine upon you and lift up his countenance towards you and give you peace. Shalom.
All right. Thank you again for that, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Good information. Yeah, it's looks like you did a good amount of research to just get all that, meaty sermon and information out to us. And yeah, we are seeing a decline in the financial system as a result of decline of morality. The world, look at how the United States, what they're promoting, and what we represent as our core values, are being shown in the media, and all the things that for equality rights, the things that are being permissible, all the sinful things that are happening, abortion, transgenderism, all this stuff that is just, paving a way for all these more in debt. It's just the opposite of Yahuwah's plan. Yahuwah's plan wants to release us. And this is why in a true theocracy, he takes the debt out from our hands at the end of of a cycle of 7 years and so on. And so, yeah, it's definitely a corrupt system. That fiat money that you mentioned, I mean, it's cash that has no value. There's
Yeah.
no commodities backing it up. There's no value behind it. There's no gold, no silver, nothing. So
Yeah.
it's just money. It's just printing money. It's a note. It's a
Yeah.
debt. Yeah.
Yeah. Before it was associated with, I don't remember exactly what was written on it, but like you could literally trade it for, like silver or gold or whatever.
Mhm.
But now it's changed to where it says a Federal Reserve note of legal tender, and that's literally all it is. I mean, and then the irony of the matter is, oh, well, we can't have you making counterfeit money. So the counterfeiters are telling people not to make counterfeit money when they're making counterfeit money. No, you can't make fake money. That's our job to make fake money, But
Right.
really what says it all is you go to a dollar store, okay? And for plastic pennies, you pay like $1.17 or $1.37 or whatever. For 100 plastic pennies, when you could get obviously 100 pennies is $1. That says it all right there. It says it all, how broken the system is. One thing I forgot to put out is, and I'll just give you this stat, extra credit, if you will. But I remember reading last year when I started really studying this, that did you know it costs $23,000 in order to create $1 million? So they print $1 million and it only costs $23,000 to do that. That fact alone just tells you how broke the system is, how corrupt the system is, how fraudulent the system is, and how up the creek without a paddle, to just say it the nicest way I can, we truly are in America. And, like I said, when America goes, I mean, it's gonna, all the merchants will weep over her, weep over her ashes and everything. So,
yeah. And they want to enslave you through debt, so that way they have more control over you. And nothing is free. When they say, these are all freebies, there's always a price. Everything has a price. And I understand even the IRS right now, they just triple or quadruple their workforce. They're getting ready to start collecting what it's owed. And if you don't, then they can hold, much against you. They'll start seizing property, seizing this, seizing that. And that's kind of like in the direction that we're actually going right now.
Yeah.
The more in debt you are, the easier it's going to be for them to seize the things that you currently think you own.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If you think you own your house because you paid your mortgage off, well, don't pay your taxes for about 2 years and see what happens, because the county will foreclose on you over your taxes. Nobody owns truly anything. So Chris said, our loan provider said we can withhold several months of payments, but when the time is up, we owe it in full. We owe it all in full. Great way to take someone's house. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's really what it is. Lizzie says in Brazil, inflation's gone crazy in the last year. Let's say from June 2020 to June 2021, the price increases are about this. Rice is up 100%. Meat is up 50 to 60%. Oil is up 100%. Flour and sugar is up 80%. Gasoline is up 40%. Butane gas, which we use to cook, or natural gas, we call it in the States, is up 50%, etc. Brother Don, before he left, said, the governor of California, yep, I recall seeing this in a headline. The governor of California just announced that all back rent will be paid for. He said not to pay back your rent because the government will pay for it. That's the world. Yeah, they're just trying to break the system. They're just trying to, it doesn't matter what they do, because like you've been, talking about with your Jubilee teachings, they're going to do a Luciferic Jubilee. That's part of the Great Reset. that's literally what they're trying to do, is say, oh, look, you know, and we're going to talk about this more. I don't want to get into it, so I'm going to leave y'all hanging. So you're welcome. If you've watched some of my other teachings on the end times, you know, you've seen it already, and you know what I'm talking about. But I'm going to leave everybody else hanging. That's okay. Let's see. I was trying to see some other. Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as those things, I mean, according to the biblical principles on how to handle the Jubilee, it's about being stewards of the land. The land's not really yours. What you're doing, you're for a season. It's very fair to how they do, how the Bible describes it, because you buy a portion like of time when you can harvest the land and plant in the land. And if you don't use it for the full, cycle of 6 years or so, then they prorate it for you. So it's very fair. It's a very fair system. But at the end of that, even if there is some type of a debt that you owe, then you are released from it. But it has to do with growing, and it has to do with harvesting, and it has to do with taking care of Israel.
Yeah.
It's not for the other nations, really.
Right.
It is for, so he has it set up that way for his people.
Yeah.
Of course, people can graft it in and become part of it, but then they too would have to do the same. They have to have the same fair and weight and balances within the way they deal with business. And it has nothing to do with loan student debts or anything like that. It has
No.
nothing to do with credit card debts or anything like that. It's a whole different system. But those who learn from the Talmud and Rashi and all that. I mean, they just perverse the word. They make it their own, to their own demise and destruction.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, even the book of Proverbs, Solomon, he actually predicted the credit system. Like, think about that for a second, because he said, and I'll make sure and bring it up in full next week, or next time. But he said, don't allow someone to basically take the bed right from out from under you. Like, make sure you you can pay for what you have, and not be enslaved by it, because the borrower is servant to the lender.
That's true.
Anyone have any any questions or comments?
Danny says, did you know, guys, that North America is the only country that if you don't pay your property taxes, the state can confiscate your property? Oh,
Good old US of A.
I didn't know that only the US
that
can do that.
That doesn't surprise me, but I didn't know it, but it doesn't surprise me at all.
It's like we're in such a matrix here. We think, oh, if we do it, most people, most countries would do the same. But
yeah, we have to do all these crazy things that everyone else is doing, right? Oh, wait, we're the only ones doing it? Oh, crap.
Yeah.
That's just like our food. Don't even get me started on that. You compare the ingredients of like simple things like ketchup, overseas to ours. It's like we got like 13 extra ingredients in ours. It's like, what is this even needed for? What is it for? But yeah, it's crazy. Any questions, comments, anything? If not, and if you think about something on the during the week, then write it down, and next time we meet, we will actually, before we get started with the next teaching, we'll field some of those questions. Okay.
Brandon?
Yeah, Danny.
I wanted to share. I read a book called Cuentos Chinos, Chinese tale, for like 6 years ago. And it gives you a lot of information what they already planned ahead for what is coming. But it's interesting that you bring all this up because they concentrate mainly in North, South, and Central America because corruption, you know how it goes. They pay off the little third world countries. So if they don't do what they say, they send, boycotts and war and civil war and all kinds of stuff. But
They
anyway,
bring them democracy. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, yeah. But this guy, he's a reporter. He's from Argentina, and he talks to the head guy from the CIA, and he tells him, where they predict this and that. But the main thing, it was like how communism will, even in the States, which is happening now, they predict that the entire North, Central, and South will be communism, and how the Chinese will come to the America, especially to the South America, and how they will battle against the USA, and how, and not demographically, but what do you call it, economically, Chinese will get ahead of the system, and all the marketings, everything will gain power in South America. And also it says how the Middle Eastern people, how the US worry about Mexican coming here through the borders. Well, when I was in political science, I took a lot of classes on this. And Middle Eastern people, Chinese and Russians, they go through they enter through Ecuador, and then from there they move to different nations, especially to Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay, because their concentration, because the arms are legal over there, so they sell them, and they finally infiltrate all South and Central America. And also they go through how the Middle Eastern people, they go all the way to South America, pass to Central America, and they end up in Mexico, change their citizenships, and pass as they were Hispanic. That was a big thing. That was probably like I can't give you dates, but I think maybe around 10 to 5 years ago. That was a big thing. And also Zimbabwe and all African nations, there were also Chinese people were coming in boats through Africa. They were doing the migration through Africa to Venezuela, Brazil, and then that's how they will all spread. But it's a really interesting book because it just gives you numbers, dates. I mean, everything is like they already know the future. It is kind of, it gets you ready actually because it tells you the food and everything. I mean, everything, anything you can think of, that book has it. It's in Spanish. I thought I saw it once that you can buy it English version, but there are not that many of them. But if you get your hands on that book, it will give you a lot of updates.
Yeah, tell you about
Yeah.
their plans.
I've seen reports in Brazil of the Chinese building universities and even cities and whole like neighborhoods. We have Chinese universities here now, and they're just building stuff and buying stuff. They're buying everything here, basically.
Yeah, there's Chinese companies or investors or whatever, hedge funds that are buying up some of the farmlands. Like they're offering them 2 and 3 times, what their market value would be worth. But
yeah, that's how they do it. So the seller cannot resist the temptation.
And also they're even offering, there's places where even our own government is coming in and offering farmers, they're saying, hey, just leave your crops out in the field to rot and we'll pay you, we'll pay you double and triple what they're worth. It's just, it's insanity,
And brother,
what's
I
happening.
think it's Danny. No,
Mhm.
no, Danny was saying, it's a sister, right? She was saying
Yeah.
that North America is the only country where if you don't pay your property taxes, the state confiscates your property. No, that's not true, because in Brazil, it's the same thing. If you don't pay your property taxes, that's it. In like a year or two, you lose it. The government comes and takes it. Either the municipal government or I think it's the municipal government. I was wondering about this the other day about people that, are backing and going off grid and stuff. How they're going to pay their property taxes eventually? The property is going to be taken away from them.
Oh,
You
yeah,
buy a piece of land, you get your chicken coop, everything, your organic garden. It's beautiful. You've been investing your time and your labor there for 2 years, building a place for you to escape, from the cities or whatever. But then the minute you stop paying your property taxes, you're going to lose the property, And with the no buy and no sell rule, they're not going to let you pay your property taxes.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah, I
see
mean,
the need for that.
there's, I don't know how it is down there, but I mean, here, what is off grid? Literally having
I know, because there's like cables, electricity going everywhere, right?
Yeah, I mean,
you have to pay your electric bill, then your name is there, your social security number. I don't know how it is in the States, but in Brazil, everything
you
is
could be, you have to have a building permit to build anything, so they got everything there. I mean, unless you literally had a huge acreage out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by trees, where there's very few roads to get in or out, and then you literally hand built, some type of structure, maybe then you would be off grid. But even then, with all the satellites and drones and the Starlink and all that kind of stuff, last night we were talking about how if you break down the word cell network, right? Well, the word cell, it can go two ways. It can be our human cells, which they're attacking those as well through the Cinco de Gaia, as I call it, the 60 gigahertz. But it's also a prison cell, as in, the song Hotel California says, we are all just prisoners here of our own device. So through the ruse of convenience, they've enslaved us virtually. Within and under the cell phone network, you literally can't go off grid, unless you were off grid, no cell phone, no nothing, like you said, no electricity, no nothing. 15 years ago, you ain't off grid. Like I know some people on Facebook, they're talking about how they're off grid, and I'm like, if you're on Facebook, you ain't off grid.
That's right.
It ain't happening.
Right.
You ain't off grid. Forget it. And even you can go as far as these places like on Amazon or some of these other long-term storage solutions. Well, if you bought it with a credit card or bought it with a debit card, and then it had it shipped to your house, well, guess what? Now they know where you live. I'm not saying this, to scare people or anything. It's just
but I agree with you. I agree with you. People have invested so much money and time and labor into building these refuge places, but I honestly don't believe it's going to hold for very long for them to be, protected by, from anything.
Yeah,
I might be wrong,
that's a great point. And I brought that up last night, some of these, and I'm not mocking them. I mean, it's a great idea. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, I might have done it if I could, but I don't think I would feel really safe,
But it's only delaying the inevitable. If Yahweh doesn't hide us, there's no hiding. Forget it.
Exactly. That's what I feel too.
It's only going to delay the inevitable. The cities are going to get hit first, but then eventually they're going to come for the rule. people.
I mean,
And it's not,
Will
you know,
Smith,
these
yeah.
people think that they're just going to sit on their homestead. Okay, I got my 3.5 years of food, water, etc., and I'm just going to be left alone. No, that's not going to happen. They
I
got
don't think
drones
so either.
overhead, thermal
Yes.
vision, all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Oh,
They're
they
going to
showed
track
in,
people
you know,
down.
there was a movie many years ago called something of state, Enemy of State. With
Oh
Will
yeah,
Smith,
the enemy of the
showing
state.
the
Yeah.
satellite grid and how they
Mhm.
could find him anywhere he was. I mean, there was no
Yeah.
place to hide. You know, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. Crazy stuff.
They want to keep track. They want to keep track of their stock because we are their stock.
Right.
We
Yeah.
are
We're the
corporations.
thing that they're trading.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
cattle.
Yeah. And that's why they're going to brand them, you know, they're branding them with a mark, and etching them molecular, on a molecular cellular level. Sarah?
Cynthia was saying, aren't the Amish off grid? I don't really know.
Yeah, some of them might be, but not like they think they are. I'll just say that.
Maybe like you said, because they started doing this, 30 years ago, 40, 50 years ago, they might actually be more protected than those who have started more recently. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just reading the comment that Danny have wrote. Says I pay everything in cash, but I might be wrong. But I did hear that even the cash is monitored now. So every new cash that is printed have a kind of stuff engraved in it that could also be, they know where the cash is going. I'm just curious. I did hear that a while back. So another thing that came in my mind is when I think it's Danny or Liz was mentioning about China. China is infiltrating, yeah, for sure, Africa, because in my country right now, what they are trying to do is gold is precious back home. So they are exchanging. The government there is, I guess, part of it. So they're digging out all the precious stone that is available back home in exchange of purchasing technology, meaning they exchange building bridges and all of that kind of stuff in exchange of their precious stones. Yes, so the China is doing a very good job of infiltrating the third world country, and I see that back home. I just wanted to share that.
No, yeah, you're right. I've even heard there's a sister in the community that lives over in the Bahamas, and she even said that they offered the Bahamas an insane amount of money for them to be able to build a military base over there. Like, what?
I'm not
like that's close. You're talking about, if you had a military base there, you might be able to reach, the far west coast. Forget, obviously you could reach the East Coast and, Central and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's pretty insane what's really happening. And the interesting thing is there was a website, I think it's since been taken down or at least altered, but deagle.com showed a military forecast of how America's population would drop between now and 2025, and how we would swap places with China and some of these other countries, to where China would take over, the top spot. I think like Russia was number 2 or something like that. And it's really an interesting thing to look at, because you can clearly see that that China's definitely been the beta testing for the New World Order. The whole facial recognition, the whole social credit score system that they're going to have in the New World Order. It's all been rolled out first in China. So it's no problem. They'll be able to do it. You know, China's been their testing ground, which is probably why this, whatever it is, however you want to label it, started there, because they wanted to show us, oh, look how dangerous it is. Oh, look at these people collapsing. Oh, look at this happening. And, you know, there was rumors that they were all like given flu shots, mandatory flu shots, you know, before, and that, you know, the Cinco de Gallo was turned on at a high rate, and that's what caused them to, you know, keel over and fall over and pass out and stuff like that. But also, I mean, we don't speak Chinese. We don't know. I mean, that could have been completely false. You know, they could have just like filming it, you know, even though it's on social media, it's not mainstream media. They could still make it just like a movie, a TV set, you know, and act stuff out just to make it
like
look
those people
dangerous.
dropping dead and stuff.
Yeah.
We've never seen that anywhere else. So
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Not true.
Right. And America had to sit there and watch as this went across the world, you know, because it started in China, you know, and then it went into Iran and Italy and the UK and stuff like that. And then it finally made it to our shores. And by the time it made it to our shores, they just rolled over like a dog and said, here, scratch my belly. You know, we're not even fighting against this, you know, because they fed them all the fear propaganda that they needed, and made them watch as it went through the rest of the world, you know.
And just the fact that they opened
agenda.
up, also they opened up way faster than any other country, you know, like
what was that?
Or in China, like maybe 6 months into the pandemic, maybe in like August or so of 2020, they were already having parties and everything was back to normal. So how can it be? You know, it makes no sense. That was like they are mocking us and saying, ha ha ha, you know, we got you.
Right.
Go for it.
Yeah. And then there's the whole side story of trying to say there was a Wuhan lab and all that nonsense. I'm like, no, there wasn't. Like,
yeah, I saw you saying that in one of our groups. What do you mean that there was no lab?
Because it's all, so number one, there is no plandemic. There's a plandemic, but not a pandemic.
Right.
Okay? So see, there's the truth, and then there's half truths, right? But if you have a Wuhan lab, oh, something was released, oh, China did it, oh, whatever, oh, they wanted to corrupt, they wanted to cripple America, oh, they wanted to steal our election, oh, they wanted to do that. No, it's all William Shakespeare said it best. The world is a stage. It's a stage. I've said it many, many times that they use the script from the movie Contagion. If you haven't seen the movie Contagion, go and watch it. Okay. And you will see that they literally use the script from that movie for this exercise, which even Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, he said we're in the middle of a live exercise.
Yeah.
You know, that's why Event 201 took place, which we're going to have to edit this part out for the people who watch this later. But that's why Event 201 took place in October of 2019. And then what happens like 6 weeks later? Boom, the pandemic happens. The very pandemic that they said would happen happened. Oh, the chances of that are just, you know, I'm sure it was just coincidence, right?
And just to add to that, the whole, like, you know, 2 months or 3 months before the first virus came out, Bill Gates did a simulation of a virus that was going to take over the world, and the person who was the advisor in the health department was actually Chinese. I mean, it was just you can't just make this stuff up. I mean, so the Gates, the whole you know, Fauci and the Chinese, they're all in this together.
And Trump. Okay.
And Trump. Oh yeah, they're all
in there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Making sure we're clear.
But they need to, like the stage, right? But they have to build a polarity between two different parties, so people get engaged and keep people, you know, on their toes. It really is at the end also for the ratings too, because if you start picking a side, then you're going to start depending on them to win for you.
Right.
Oh, this person's going to win for me. No, this person's
Yeah.
for me, and so on, instead of
Yeah.
allowing him
Yeah.
to take care of all your issues. But yeah, they're infiltrating in all ways. I mean, buying property left and right, educational system,
Yeah.
and they found a bunch of spies in the government from China that they got
Yeah, I
caught.
don't know. I
mean, that,
see.
you know.
That's where
What-
that mixing happens of the truth and lies, because then
Yeah.
it's the whole, oh, it's this against that. Nope, they're all in this to get us. That's the
Yeah.
bottom line, you know.
I still believe that there's still, like, I understand. Yeah, I mean, I do understand that, but I still think that there are ways that some of these governments, like the Mossad and even our own, or the Russians, they try to dig up dirt on people. They hold that against them to make them do whatever they want, at the end of the day. So I do believe there's that element, kind of like what they did with, I believe Biden and his son too.
Mhm. All this stuff. I mean, McAfee, Fauci, Epstein, Hunter's laptop, all of it. It's distraction. Look over here while we take over, while we cripple the economy, while we wreck the entire world and bring in the new world order. Here, just keep looking over here. Oh, look over here at this rabbit hole. Oh, look over there.
Yeah.
It's just all distractions, just all distractions. That's really the bottom line of it all, is to give us the illusion of choice, just like Matthew touched on. I think it was like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Well, I think it's time. We're gonna be some of us will be heading to the next meeting. Appointed time is feast. Well, great representation again, Brown. I can't wait to your part 2.
Thank you.
And thank you for all that time.
And I
research
put
you
a
into
link
it.
for those who weren't here in the beginning. I know I talked about it in the beginning, but I put a link to a 20-minute YouTube video that just gives even more ammunition and compares our situation currently in America to what occurred in Venezuela in like 2016, what occurred to 1920s Germany, what occurred throughout parts of history. So I would definitely encourage people to watch that, because it just gives more backing to what I'm talking about how printing more money doesn't work. Inflation and hyperinflation doesn't work. It's how economies are crippled. So
yeah, all right. Well, save the chat, everyone, so you can watch.
Yeah, or just
later.
copy and paste the link. It's right there. So
yeah, hyperinflation is already here. Got it. Yep.
Yep.
Thank you, brother, for sharing. All right. Would you like to close this out in prayer, Brandon?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. All right. Yahweh, we just thank you for this beautiful day that you blessed us with, that you called the Shabbat Kodesh and set apart and blessed it. And we just asked that you would take this message and seal it upon our hearts and upon our minds, that we would not forget or take it for granted, and that you would just give us peace as we move into the rest of our day and into the rest of these end times that we for certainly are in, and that you would just give us your peace that passes all understanding, that would guard our hearts and minds through Yahushua HaMashiach. And we pray these things in Yahushua's name. Amen.
Amen. And may all of you have a blessed and peaceful and restful Shabbat.
Amen.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
All right. Well,
All
Shabbat
right.
Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Blessings to all of you.